Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with episode 718 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week across NXT and AEW. But not only that, this will serve officially as your 2025 AEW Dynasty Ultimate Preview. We will break down every single match on the growing card. We will give you predictions for those matches and pre-show expectation grades for the first pay-per-view since Revolution, airing just 28 days after that went off the air. It will be a conversation topic later in the show, but there is a ton to get to, talking AEW, NXT, 60 seconds on WWE Evolve, all of that coming on today's episode. Before we get to any of that, though, the Silver King off the top needs to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast
is all about the five.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And we talk so much about Apple Podcasts, but we appreciate all of our Spotify followers and listeners as well. So if you listen to us on there, you want to leave a positive comment on any of the shows, please do that. But make sure if you listen to us on Spotify and you have not hit that 5-star rating, please do so. We would greatly appreciate that as well. Those ratings are just as important. Our Spotify listenership is actually growing faster than our Apple Podcast listenership, so we're not forgetting about any of you. Speaking of where Getting Over is growing, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. You get full audio from every episode if you wish, video clips from old interviews, and full video of brand new interviews. And we have a fresh one coming for you next week right here on Getting Over. Please remember to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also vote in pre and post show polls on our Twitter account at Getting Overcast. And you can leave questions and comments for us. We will do our best to discuss them on the air. Lastly, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Now, as mentioned, we have an absolute ton of stuff to discuss for you. Big time NXT with developments not only for NXT Stand and Deliver, but also in the world of WWE, all happening on that show. AEW, there was a lot of stuff that happened between Dynamite and Collision, most of it, of course, building toward AEW Dynasty, the ultimate preview of which will main event this episode. It'll be the final segment on today's show. There will be timestamps in the episode description, so you can jump around as you so choose. As always, I hope you listen to the entire show. And since we have so much to talk about, let's not waste any time. Let's get right to NXT. Stephanie Vaquer opened the show Tuesday with Ava in the ring, putting her over, ultimately deciding she should not continue being double champion. Immediate, loud, understandable protest boos from the fans. The title will be awarded to the winner of a 6-person ladder match at Stand and Deliver, which was obvious, expected, and frankly appropriate. Vaquer said NXT has given her so much already. She wants to do the same for the women's division. She relinquished the title under the condition that she could pick her challenger for the NXT women's title at Stand and Deliver. Out came Jordan Grace and Jada Parker in succession, arguing over who should fight Vaquer. Grace said Parker fumbled her chance and should get to the back of the line. Vaquer told them, work it out amongst yourselves. Quick brawl. This included Jordan throwing the security dude out of the ring in one of the cleanest spots of its kind I have ever seen. And the only context I can provide to it is it was exactly like Uncle Phil throwing Jazz out of the house at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The crowd went so wild, the whole broadcast got muted, probably because they were chanting holy shit. And I'm pretty sure the guy who she threw was Trill Williams, the former Miami Dolphins quarterback. Don't want to forget to note here, Ms. Parker was wearing the Crenshaw jersey from Love and Basketball, which was obviously like top tier in its own right. We later saw Jordan and Jada brawling backstage, but nothing actually came of that. Now, obviously, no one reinvented the wheel with this booking. We've seen it a million times before, and it's totally sensible. I understand the protests of some who want Fakir to continue operating as a double champion, and I would agree if it was another promotion's title or like the NXT title and the Intercontinental Championship. But the NXT women's division, it is far too deep for her to hold both straps. And it would have been patently unfair for her to wrestle twice as many matches just to keep a subsection of fans happy. Certainly, they could have gone the more inventive route with both titles on the line in a 2-fall triple threat match, as one of our listeners proposed, and you could still do the 6-woman ladder match for a number 1 contendership or something like that. But it is hard to argue that a 6-person ladder match for a vacant title on the biggest show of the year is a negative, because it's not. That's going to be a fantastic match. I've also seen comparisons to the Keith Lee situation. Yes, the scenarios are the same, but NXT had Stephanie defend both titles last week to prove that she's a capable double champion before she relinquished the North American this week. Lee just straight gave it up, and then he lost the NXT title on the back of that. Vaquer isn't losing the main strap anytime soon. So I thought the segment was handled well, all things considered. The spot with Grace at the end was insane. It's going to be on highlight packages in the future. Credit to that dude, by the way, for his awesome leap. It's going to be Grace and Parker next week, one-on-one. It was not called a number 1 contendership because the stipulation, as I said, is that Vaquer gets to pick her opponent. I truly hope it's not a cop-out and we go to a triple threat. There's already going to be one of them booked for the show. There's already a 6-woman match booked on the show. As we've mentioned, there's going to be 3 or 4 multi-person matches on the WrestleMania card. At some point, you just need to put more matches on cards to give people opportunities, not just throw triple threats and fatal 4-ways and 5-ways and 6-ways together. So I really hope this is one-on-one. Vaquer and Grace makes by far the most sense. It's a mega match. I love Jada Parker. I think everyone who listens to this show knows I was on Jada before pretty much anyone else. I think she's going to be a massive star. She really should be in the North American 6-woman ladder match, and she should win that. I don't understand why she hasn't held the North American title. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So perhaps she loses on Tuesday, then gets into that as a last chance qualifier. I'm not exactly sure, but I really hope they avoid a triple threat. Now, the women's locker room interrupted with this news. Ariana Grace said it was too dangerous for her. She didn't want to be in the match at all. Lola Vice and Cora Jade got heated. Then they all argued ahead of qualifying matches. Kalani Jordan later told Ava that this match was perfect for her because it's how she won the inaugural title. Roxanne Perez returned similarly excited about the match, saying she'll become the first woman to hold every women's title that exists in NXT. Perez dissed Jordan's new attitude, and Ava put them together for a qualifying match. And coming out of this, I said, you know what? Like, I know people want Roxy called up to the main roster, and she's great and all this. I really would not have minded her winning the North American title and fulfilling what she just said there, being the first woman to hold every single title on the brand. If any woman deserved to do that, it would be her. But we got the match, Roxy and Lani. Julia's name was mentioned during this match for the first time on commentary since she lost the title. Perez thumbed the eye behind the referee's back, snapped Jordan's arm, bent backwards over the bottom rope in the corner. Lani hit Rob Van Dam's step-through roundhouse kick, but she missed one of a kind. Took the cartwheel knee drop that Perez was taught by Meiko Satomura, which was awesome that she's now using that. The finish was Lani holding the ropes and mule kicking Roxy's knee, which dropped her to the canvas for a basement DDT and one of a kind. Massive upset victory. And Booker T sold this really well, just completely speechless on commentary. And if there's ever a commentator being speechless that would actively improve a segment, it's Booker. Not because I don't love him on commentary, but because he talks so much that the absence of his voice delivered the meaningfulness of this segment, of this result. This was probably the most significant proof of Perez getting called up to the main roster, leaving the territory on her back right before WrestleMania that we've seen to date. I had an inkling this was the direction they were going to go, but I just hoped inside that Roxy would somehow wind up in the match. It remains extremely odd the way her storyline with Bayley got completely dropped. I continue to wonder why she has nothing scheduled for WrestleMania weekend. It really feels like some plans changed. If you'll remember, on our WWE show at one point, I theorized it was going to be Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch either facing each other for the Intercontinental Championship or teaming against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Obviously, neither of those is happening because Becky hasn't returned to TV. it feels like Bayley is moving into that role. And I'm beginning to wonder whether that is happening and the fallout is we're not getting Bayley and Roxy as anticipated. But if that's the case, then did Becky pull herself from WrestleMania at the last minute? Did they decide creatively to have her show up on the Raw after WrestleMania or a month later or whatever the case might be? That is what's confusing about the entire deal. Now, in terms of Perez, maybe they can bubble something up with Cora Jade because she's in a qualifying match. Roxy could cost her, or she could just not qualify. They could get into a fight backstage, and that could lead to a grudge match. That would make sense. But this match was extremely solid. 2 commercial breaks, unfortunately, hurt the flow. Big win for Lani. She absolutely should not win the ladder match. Let me just make that perfectly clear. Zarya fought Lash Legend in another qualifier. I don't know why I said her name in that weird way. Zarya.
Oh, we got 2 big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Oh boy, did they bump meat. This was the first qualifier of the 2, and I was hoping both would wind up in the ladder match, so this was a crazy booking. Lash chopped the ever-loving shit out of Zarya early. Legend hit a nice backbreaker. Zarya countered a powerbomb with a hurricanrana, hit a German suplex. Zarya missed a spear, took a chokeslam. They both escaped each other's finishers before Zarya hit a spear that Lash unfortunately took pretty bad. She added the F5 that still doesn't have a unique name for the 1-2-3. I was worried initially that they were going to have Lash win given the Zarya Sol Ruka team is still running hot, but this was the right move. Zarya needs to be in this ladder match. I wouldn't hate if Lash got in as a last chance qualifier, though. She has come along so much. Really, the only thing holding her back is the name. I just don't love that name. As far as the match,
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
it wasn't necessarily the smoothest, but both of them did well. I give this 3.5 slabs of beef. Zarya backstage told Sol that she wants her out by the ring with her at Stand and Deliver, to which Ruka said that was a no-brainer. Jordan came in bragging about beating Perez. That led Zarya to laugh in her face and Sol to say one of them would become the next champion. Zarya misunderstood, not realizing that Sol had her own qualifier. Sol then named their team Zaruka, which obviously plays and hopefully becomes official like Fraxium. Lani still struggles to be believable. Her personality-driven segments, they just don't really hit. This one was immensely rushed. Sol better be in this ladder match. Let me just make that clear. There are not 4 other women who deserve it more than her right now. Simple as that. Speaking of women who deserve to be in this match, if Tatum Paxley is not one of the qualifiers, Silver King is about to slap someone. I promise you that. D'Angelo family had a briefing in their warehouse about Dark State. Luca Crucifino showed dossiers on each guy, which effectively served as their character introductions. Dion Lennox, a smart jock with a temper, who Lucas said got them all together, which would theoretically make him the leader. Osiris Griffin, a barbarian on the field who has great instincts. Cutler James, an accomplished wrestler from Duke, which Tony D'Angelo hysterically dissed. Adriana Rizzo put him over as tough, ruthless, and athletic. And just so you know, Rizzo and James are dating, so I guess it's easy to look into him like that. And then Stack shared that Saquon Sugars is a wild card city kid from the street who turned down Harvard and is such a smooth talker that people always follow him. D'Angelo said they sound like legit badasses. Stacks wanted to take the fight to them. Tony D said, calm down, trust me to come up with a better plan. This was a really, really smart way to simultaneously introduce all 4 guys without requiring them to cut some long vignette. And it painted Dark State as so mysterious and dangerous that a mafia family had to use their connections just to find out some information about them. Now, could we have gotten all this stuff from Wikipedia and YouTube? Yes, we could have. But nevertheless, in kayfabe, it worked. It totally fit the gimmick of both stables, and it did that while continuing to develop D'Angelo family's internal storyline. That's just real quality wrestling writing right there. It was a standout moment for the show, both for its ridiculousness and because it actually delivered information that the viewer needed to know. Trick Williams over the weekend told Obafemi that he's not a punk who can be thrown around like Javon Evans, and he'll be in the ring Tuesday to get his match at Stand and Deliver. Oba in the parking lot said he doesn't answer to Trick. Trick answers to him, and he'll learn why Femi should never be called out like that. This confrontation opened hour 2. Trick said Oba may be the champion, but he's still the man. He fought for it, sacrificed for it, lost a brother for it. Williams said he feels the hate, and people are trying to hold him down. Javon Evans interrupted with Trick kind of sunning him again, saying he was collateral damage to the grown folks. Evans quoted Williams from a year ago, when do I know it's my turn, but said he doesn't need to move out of anyone's shadow to break out, referring, of course, to Carmelo Hayes. Trick said Javon is in his shadow and knows nothing about being the A champion. And given he quoted Melo like 3 different times in this segment, Javon said he's not looking at Trick, but Carmelo Hayes. And that makes him a hypocrite. Dagger of a line right there. Evans bragged about dropping Femi. That brought Oba to the ring. Javon cut him off, reminding that he was a second away from winning a deadline. Oba similarly sunned him, saying that he's a small boy with big dreams. Trick told him just to excuse them, so Femi said he might still be champion if he spent less time talking. Out came Ava, making the triple threat match. Williams was so pissed he slugged Evans. Femi then clotheslined him out of the ring. Dark State not only appeared, they swarmed Oba and Javon. Evans took a sick-looking pendulum back body drop. Femi got booted out of the ring. Trick then appeared between all 4 of them. The lights came back on, teasing that he was their leader. But they all swarmed him for a huge toss powerbomb. Real interesting way to seemingly eliminate that as an option, though it could also be a swerve. Off the top, I cannot help but laugh at Cutler James in this group. He is so out of place physically, and he has little to no acting ability. He can't even make an angry or evil face like the rest of the dudes do. It's just ridiculous. Now, I've said this before, but what remains so attractive and interesting about Javon, just as a prospect, he was the lone wrestler out there who, for better or worse, carries himself and talks like he is in Gen Z. He continues to mumble a little bit too much, but he's sharp and, most importantly, 100% authentic. So many wrestlers, you can tell they're reading off a script or not confident in the words they're speaking. He stands out. And the way he stood toe-to-toe, 10 toes down with more experienced dudes, both of them 6+ years older than him, that remains impressive. Building Trick into exactly what he hated in Melo is so ridiculously smart, especially if he ends up getting called to the main roster, because if you put him on SmackDown, that almost gives him reason to re-team with Melo and refresh Melo's gimmick, which I think is necessary at this point. I cannot imagine that Williams gets called up until we get Oba and Trick one-on-one, which is why this triple threat makes so much sense, because Williams is not ready to get called up to the main roster, but he and Evans are the only dudes in the men's division actually worthy of main eventing alongside Femi for a title at a show this large. Oba was probably the weakest in this entire segment, but he didn't do anything wrong. Meanwhile, this was one of Trick's best promos ever. He worked well individually. He worked with the guys well. It was all a success. This was just a tremendous setup, a compelling enough situation where I'm now extremely curious to see what happens over the next 2 weeks going into Stand and Deliver. And they haven't necessarily taken me out of my Trick Dark State conspiracy just yet, but we'll see what happens next week. Ava later decreed backstage that she was sick of Dark State interrupting and causing chaos time and again, so they would fight Oba, Trick, and Javon in a 6-man tag team match next week. The faction then posted a social media promo bragging about what they've already done while threatening D'Angelo family. Keeping them involved in this main event storyline, that's got to be an indication that Trick or Javon is ultimately their leader, and I maintain that Williams makes much, much more sense. James did a better job speaking here than previously, but Jordan and Sugars, they stood out from the foursome as usual. There was another culling video package of the underlings putting over Sean Spears as a cult leader for successfully putting them all together. They called themselves 4 legs of a chair, which was just hysterical given the whole chairman gimmick. And it also kind of reminded about the schism. What was it, like 4 branches, 1 tree? These are 4 legs, 1 chair. I mean, it's almost identical. Let's just be honest. I got to tell you, this is not a gimmick I would normally care about in any way. You'll remember I didn't like the schism just by comparison. And I'm certainly not a notable fan of any of the 4 people in this group, the calling. But for some reason it works. So credit where it's due. The North American title was on the line. Spears defending against Ricky Saints. In a promo backstage, Ricky said Sean knows nothing about him, and it took Spears forever to find gold in NXT, whereas he's going to do it in record time. This started hot. It was the main event, but it was fire right at the bell. Saints did old school while strutting on the barricade. He later hit an avalanche jackhammer out of a superplex setup. The crowd exploded on landing here. He added a spinebuster, but Spears avoided Rochambeau rolling outside. So Saints hit a tornado DDT off the apron. Culling distracted, allowing Spears to drill Saints with a belt shot for a 2.9 false finish. We will come back to that. Spears screamed at him before Saints reversed to C4, then took out Culling one by one. Saints then speared him coming back and hit Rochambeau for the 1-2-3 to shockingly win the NXT North American Championship. Amid "You Deserve It" chants, Ethan Page blindsided Saints with Twisted Grin, stealing the spotlight and holding the title above his head as NXT went off the air. Talk about a shocking title change. I believe we actually discussed this last week, that it was a possibility because Saints and Page is an immensely more compelling match for Stand and Deliver, but I did not see Spears in this new gimmick being completely used as a transitional champion so quickly. I mean, he just won the title about 3 weeks ago, and then he lost it in his first defense. I know he's 44 and his role is to put over younger talent. I just didn't necessarily believe they would do it this way. I figured Page would interfere here. We'd get a triple threat at Stand and Deliver, or Saints would get a rematch with Spears. He'd win the title, and then he'd start an extended feud with Page. Given Ethan just lost at the end of that excellent feud with Javon, having him take another quick L just a few weeks later, it's going to be rather surprising. In terms of the match, I always hate when belt shots with immediate covers or false finishes. It is so inconsistent because we have absolutely seen major matches for world titles end with belt shots. If you want the kick out, then delay the cover 10, 15 seconds. I hate when AEW does it. I dislike the spot here as well. And I've hated it when WWE's done it in the past, which I don't recall being that frequently, but I think it's happened a few times in NXT. Besides that, this was a barn burner between the two guys. Saints was shot out of a cannon at the opening bell. Spears sold his ass off for him. And Ricky came across more than worthy of the title, not only the way he eliminated the stable members, but how he hit Spears' own move and added both of his finishers in succession. 3.75 stars B+, a tremendous TV main event, and a great moment to establish Saints. Now, I'm not sure I would call this a rocket-strapping moment for him per se, given it is a mid-card title, but what you all need to remember is WWE did not expect Saints to be a free agent this early. So this booking is somewhat on the fly, and he's still getting strapped up with something important while the main event title has a concerted feud surrounding it. It's the best NXT could do for him given the circumstances. And the level to which he was put over by the match layout, basically winning 1-on-3, that made him look incredibly strong. The crowd was absolutely nuts for the title change, so maybe it's not a rocket-strapping moment, but it's nevertheless a massive push right out of the gate. Cameras panned from a close-up of Hank and Tank backstage, showing them wearing Pretty Deadly's sleeve crop tops, I guess you can call them, and it got a great crowd reaction. Their advice was people become stars when they look like stars. No Quarter Cash Crew made fun of Hank and Tank, so they tore off the tops, which was unfortunate because I wanted to see them wrestle in those shirts. I mean, what's the whole point of them putting them on in the first place if you're not going to wrestle in them? So we had Hank and Tank against NQCC. Rare match without a specific storyline in WWE. The preceding segment occurred with the match having already been made, so that's why it doesn't count. The faces were dressed normally, but acting more boisterous. Tank had a strong hot tag with an interesting cradle release spinebuster. The faces tried Spilt Milk, but Miles Bourne broke it up. NQCC hit what I believe was a brand new finisher, a tandem fireman's carry F5 DDT. They're a great team. They should definitely be champions sooner than later. And that is a terrific finishing move, despite the setup taking a few too many seconds. We had gone far too long without NQCC regularly appearing on TV. Hopefully this is the start of getting them back in the regular mix. We need Ren Sinclair in that North American title ladder match. More so Tatum Paxley, more so Sol Ruka, but I want Ren Sinclair in there as well. Fraxium backstage disagreed over Hank and Tank, with Nathan Frazier criticizing their string of losses, calling them embarrassing. Axiom said that they should just be supportive, and he wished that their friendship was as strong as that of Hank and Tank. Swipe Right from Evolve then popped in, saying Fraxium is their Hardy Boys, and they'd like to see how they measure up against them. Perez then walked by, so they stared her up and down and called her a smoke show, which, look, obviously true, and I know it's their gimmick. I'd have liked her to turn back around and slap them across the face. It just felt a little too objectifying, especially for NXT. This match is fine as a way to promote Evolve, but given this is the road to Stand and Deliver and Fraxium doesn't have title challengers, it just felt totally ham-fisted into the show. I presume we're going to get Fraxium against the Hardys in a rematch. Otherwise, I have no idea what direction they're going here. I also had a thought coming out of this. Swipe Right would make the perfect long-term foils for Chase U. They are straight out of a college comedy movie. The heads of the douchebag fraternity or popular guys skirt chasing all the women. It is such a great Gen Z gimmick. It's a fantastic team name. All of it works. And if Chase U ever starts again, I would love for them either to be like overall part of the university or the foils for, Uriah Connors and Cale Dixon. Speaking of those guys, Andre Chase backstage learned from the trainer that his ribs got cracked last week. He was asked if he had a ride home, said no, he's all alone. That led Dixon and Connors to interrupt with a wheelchair, saying he's not alone and they've got his back. So this was a nice building block segment. It does seem like Chase U is going to come back in some form. And lastly, Yoshiki Inamura told Josh Briggs backstage it was his dream to wrestle at Stand and Deliver. Wesley and his crew clowned them. Briggs said bro like a dozen times before Yoshi got in Wes's face, saying he used to fight with honor, but now he's just going to make him pay. I could have sworn this was happening on the show, but it turns out they set it up for next week. So we'll get that as a singles match. I don't necessarily know where any of this is going, but it just seems like TV fodder. So that wraps up NXT this week. An eventful show from top to bottom. Main event women's division, main event men's division, and the mid card for both of them really developed. The only thing that didn't really was the tag team division, specifically around Fraxium. There's 2 weeks left. They're going to need to set that title match for Stand and Deliver next week because you cannot leave Fraxium off of this card. Speaking of the card, let's go ahead and take a look at where the NXT Stand and Deliver card stands and hopefully delivers. We have the NXT Women's Championship, Stephanie Vaquer defending against an opponent of her choosing. I'm projecting that as Jordan Grace. The NXT Men's Championship, Obafemi, Trick Williams, Javon Evans in a triple threat match, exactly what it should be. The vacant North American Championship ladder match, Zarya, Kalani Jordan, and 4 others will be part of that. The North American, now those are the ones that are official. Let me be clear. These are unofficial, but I'm kind of projecting. The Men's North American Championship, Ricky Saints against Ethan Page. Maybe there's a stipulation here. Just this is due to the post-match attack and the storyline between them. Tag Team Championship, maybe Fraxium against the Hardy Boys. A rematch for Fraxium to get their win back on a bigger stage than the Hardy Boys got their win. And then maybe Roxanne Perez against Cora Jade. Roxy really needs to have a match on the show. Cora probably should as well. It would make a lot of sense to put them there, and you would have 3 women's matches and 3 men's matches, a 6-match show. They could go with a 7th. I don't necessarily know what it would be, but if this was the booking, then notable superstars who would be excluded would be Jada Parker, unless she beats Jordan, or that becomes a triple threat, or she gets put into the ladder match. Tony D'Angelo. They could possibly do a 6-man match with Dark State, possibly put that on the kickoff. That could work. And then Wesley. I just don't see a spot for Wes, unfortunately, on the card this year. So moving out of NXT, which let me just wrap up by saying I thought it was a very entertaining show this week. There was a lull. It was either last week or 2 weeks ago, but this entire last month, the month of March, NXT has delivered as it usually does going into April 1st. And yeah, I mean, the build for Stand and Deliver, it's off and running. Is it going to be the best WrestleMania weekend card ever? Possibly not. But those top few matches are immensely strong. And if they build out the rest of the card, it could be a special show. So before we get to AEW, as we always do, or as we've done the last 4 weeks, I guess, we're going to tackle WWE Evolve in 60 seconds. Silver King is going to start a timer and see if we hit that mark. And here we go. First match was with Zeta Steele, who's a top WWE ID talent I'd only seen on YouTube to this point. She fought Brinley Reese, who hit a cartwheel lariat, then hit a TKO for the win. It's called Breeze's Two Pieces. I'm glad it has a name, but that is a mouthful. Steele looked really good here. Keanu Carver and Luca Crucifino had a fun match. Carver somewhat reminds of Mark Henry in that he does a lot of charging, hard strike offense. Crucifino's code breaker is called Lawbreaker. Great name. Carver won with a turnover power slam off the shoulder. That looked really cool. Callie Armstrong stood out in a verbal face-off with Danny Palmer, who for some reason has completely changed her look for the absolute worst. She's totally generic now. She's 26. She looks like she's 44 with this getup, but Callie continues to impress. Harlem Lewis beat Joe Coffey in a shocking upset. Lewis flashed in a couple spots, but the best parts of the match were all Coffey. Working and selling left a lot to be desired, and there was nearly a disastrous botch. And Kylie Ray and Wendy Chu, that was the main event, best match of the show. Chu won with a full Nelson Slam and dirt nap, kind of a crossface chicken wing. Kylie is really good bell to bell. She could be maybe the Serena Deeb of NXT. I cannot see her going further than that in WWE. I really hate to say it. All right, 1 minute, 7 seconds. We're closing in on WWE Evolve in 60 seconds. We will do our best to get there in the future. That brings us into AEW. And we're going to discuss everything that happened across Dynamite and Collision. We're going to give you an AEW Dynasty Ultimate Preview
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
So off the top, AEW announced its full schedule for Y'all In, Texas. And the most notable item here is that the show itself will take place not only on Saturday instead of Sunday, which we already knew, but it's going to start at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. Now, this is probably being done because of WWE's Saturday night's main event that evening. But I got to tell you, I like this as a decision regardless of that. AEW shows are so ridiculously long that by the time they're over at 12:30 or 1 a.m. Eastern, you're just exhausted. So regardless of the reason or anything, I think it's a great move. And because All In is usually their longest show of the year, if you're starting it at 3, I mean, there's a chance that thing's going to 7 or 8 o'clock as it is. So that's a positive decision. Now, some other notes here. They will hold ROH Death Before Dishonor the Friday prior to Y'all In at 8 p.m. So just pretty normal. They're going to do it at that esports stadium where they had that residency. I believe it was last summer. They're also going to air Dynamite and Collision from the Curtis Colwell Center in Garland, Texas. I frankly just have no idea what that is. Those are both going to be at 8 p.m. But because Y'all In is on Saturday, Collision is going to be airing on Thursday. So they're kind of going to go back to what WWE did for a short period of time, where you'll remember Raw and SmackDown were Monday and Tuesday, respectively, back to back. Now, normally, I would dislike this because it's just a lot of content in a short window. But in this case, because you're building for your biggest show of the year and you're doing it in a stadium, it kind of makes sense to do this. Also, it gives AEW an opportunity to test Thursday as a day to air Collision. Thursday is inherently better than Saturday, even if during portions of the year, there's obviously football, and Tony Khan's not going to want to run Collision head-to-head with the NFL. I don't particularly know the NBA and NHL schedules on Thursday. I would presume that there's games those days, and, Turner, or I should say Warner Brothers Discovery, wouldn't want Collision to run on Thursday, but I just don't know. I could see a situation where half the year Collision runs on Saturday, half the year it runs on Thursday, as long as it's not against football. I just don't know exactly what they're going to do, but what they're clearly putting together here is a mini, WrestleMania week of programming, and that's the right decision for AEW. There's also going to be a StarCast on Friday and Saturday, so they're trying to build this up as their own weekend. How successful that will be remains to be seen, but the fact that they're doing it in Texas, where they have a really solid audience to start, there's a huge population there, it makes a lot of sense. And if you're coming in for, Y'all In on Saturday, maybe you don't necessarily want to go to ROH or StarCast or anything like that, but would you go in on Wednesday and see Dynamite and Collision before? Yeah, I think so. I believe the arena they're using from TV is only about 45 minutes from Arlington itself, so you could probably stay somewhere in between and go to both and be totally fine. So it'll be interesting to see, how AEW pulls this off. I presume those TV shows will sell out just because there are going to be so many people going there specifically for Y'all In, but, we'll have to see as they start releasing attendance numbers and as they sell tickets. Couple other quick items before we get into the full breakdown. Orange Cassidy is reportedly out indefinitely with a torn pectoral, which is obviously unfortunate. Look, injuries are never positive, but this is perhaps, how do I put this? Not the worst possible timing for him, just because he wasn't doing much of anything anyway right now. So if there's a time where you need to recover, it's when you're not involved in a major program and you don't have to change any major plans, right? So it sucks for him individually, but for AEW, it may not be the worst timing if it had to happen anyway. Jay White is reportedly injured as well. This is the total contrary, point. The timing sucks. And I believe this is the third injury he's had since joining AEW. Just absolutely zero luck there. And I don't know if he had anything he was immediately doing, but he was going to be in the Owen Hart Cup. And now he's being pulled from that. So they're at least changing a couple matches because of it. Let's go ahead, break down everything that happened across Dynamite and Collision that may not have directly had to do with AEW Dynasty, or if it did, it didn't necessarily develop until that show. And then, of course, we will have your full AEW Dynasty Ultimate preview. 5 of 12 matches this week were storyline relevant, and that was with some leniency from yours truly. That's 42%. And frankly, for a go-home week, that's pathetic. Period. Collision was a joke. Dynamite was the worst episode in at least a month, if not longer. AEW had been running real hot with some quality TV on Wednesday nights going into and coming out of Revolution. The last 2 weeks have been a total turn otherwise. Unlike Revolution, which had me insanely pumped going in, this in every way feels like a B-show Dynasty from top to bottom. The truth is, and I've said this before, AEW has overextended its serving of pay-per-views, and this show should not even be happening 28 days after Revolution. Way too soon. They should have gone Revolution, Double or Nothing, y'all in. That's it. Let's get to it. On Dynamite, MJF interrupted Bobby Lashley with MVP before he was going to speak in the ring. He said Lashley's accomplished a lot, but because he knows AEW like the back of his hand, he is of great use to them, and they can certainly help each other dominate. Lashley spoke more words here than his entire AEW run up to this point in response. He said he wouldn't kick MJF's ass out of respect for MVP, but he doesn't like him, doesn't trust him, doesn't need him, unless he proves otherwise. MJF mic basically said he was willing to prove himself to them. MVP then told Lashley off mic that he was just like MJF at his age. This was a nice enough segment, better than last week, but the drip, drip, drip of it just leaves a lot to be desired. It's tough to see what the end result is going to be here. MJF beating Lashley in a singles match at Y'all In? Like, could you imagine that being the case? So we'll just have to see where this goes. On Collision, Jay White beat Kevin Knight in 11 minutes. Nice match that had absolutely no reason for happening. It ended with Blade Runner and White staring into the camera. White put Knight over after the bell, saying that Knight was great in the ring and he deserved an ovation, which he got. White then said he needs to win the Owen so he can get a shot at the AEW title. He's going to actually need to win something at some point soon because he continues to talk a big game, but he doesn't get strapped up with anything. He hasn't won the Continental, the International, the TNT, the AEW title, nothing. Knight was announced as signed by AEW shortly after this. He's 28, tons of talent, definitely a good signing. I'm just not sure exactly what he's going to do there. You know, like they don't have other people doing already. As far as White goes, it was announced early during Dynamite that he was attacked backstage by the Death Riders, but it happened off screen, so we never even saw him. That tells me it's a legitimate injury, as has been reported. It's tough timing just because of the Owen. What's absurd, though, is that coming out of this, Knight was given White's spot in the Owen, as opposed to all of the talented wrestlers backstage who have been signed for more than a week and have actually won matches. Yet this guy's getting an opportunity in a short tournament, by the way. I believe it's only 8 competitors. That grants a number 1 contendership to the AEW title. It just seemed completely ridiculous. On Collision, Hologram beat Blake Christian. Why? No reason. Fun flippy spots in the match. Hologram won with the portal bomb. There were 6 matches on Collision. Only one of them had actual storyline relevance. Totally inexcusable. On Dynamite, Will Ospreay and Knight beat Christian and Lee Johnson. You cannot tell me Tony Khan's booking issues are over when 3 of the 4 guys in this match were booked on a pay-per-view go-home show. The Faces did a cool double tope spot to either side of the ring before Knight won with his springboard lariat, which, if that's his finisher, is a massively disappointing move, just given his immense athleticism. It's as bad for him as Trick Shot is for Trick Williams. This was basically the definition of a heatless banger. There was nothing to it whatsoever. On Collision, Mercedes Moné beat Robin Renegade in a 3-minute non-title match. Why? No reason. For some reason, though, Tony Schiavone needed to get in the ring for Moné to take the microphone away from him and speak. She declared for the Owen to win more gold. She trashed Billy Stark, saying her trainer sucked. Out came Athena, making her first appearance on AEW television in 19 months. Mercedes took a big swing, avoided O-Face, which Robin ate. Later backstage, Athena called Mercedes passive-aggressive and says she needs to keep her name out of her mouth. She also entered the Owen and told Billy that she would watch her match closely. Okay, so a couple things here. First, Mercedes should never cut a promo after a match again. It made her already delayed style of speaking sound even worse because she was also gasping for breath. Then you bring Athena back after all this time and you do it on your B show instead of your A show. Why? And finally, you're relying on your entire audience caring about what this woman has been doing off TV over 2 years. Some folks in attendance knew and they popped, but those are the most dedicated fans who are buying tickets. It just felt like this should have been built up bigger and far better, but there's plenty of time before y'all in. Athena's promo, it was the best part of this entire deal. People talk all the time about WWE or AEW dropping balls on talent that have moved to other brands. Swerve remains WWE's greatest mistake in terms of a release. I said it the day it happened. But Athena, she is way up there. She might be the number 2 spot. It was a total mistake to cut her. She's been doing great work in Ring of Honor, and I'm really excited to see what she can do in AEW with Mercedes. I just wish this was booked better. On Collision, Jamie Hayter beat Starks in 10 minutes. This main event of the show, there was no reason for the match happening. Hayter said she respected Starks but would not ease up on her. She also entered the Owen. This reminded that the entire last 9 months of her career have been a total waste because she returned it all in last year. Commentary called out chants during the match. It was literally 5 people yelling for each woman. Hayter hit a neck breaker over her knee and a basement clothesline. The finish was easily the best part of the match. A running jump off Haterade with a foot on the middle rope. I loved that. On Collision, Chris Statlander and Thunder Rosa also entered the Owen. Stat came up with her 5th or 6th different catchphrase. You can't stop Stat. They got into it with one another, the presumption being they're going to fight in the tournament. I do like how Thunder is now bedazzling a mask on her face rather than using face paint. Just a different look. On Collision, Learning Tree beat Top Flight in 10 minutes, with the idea being that this was enough for them to get a title match. I'll remind you, this was their first ever tag team win, despite 9+ months of being together. AR Fox then ran in to save Top Flight from potentially getting attacked by the Crew. This entire storyline should be in Ring of Honor. I don't even understand why this is on television, even more so given what happened later. The Crew confronted Nick Wayne asking what's up with his boy Fox. The idea being for him to get involved as their third to fight the faces. Credit Wayne's character for being smart enough to see through all of this, but all they did was restate their case, and then he just considered their offer. On Dynamite, they walked out for a match against 2 jobbers. This is Learning Tree I'm talking about, telling MVP and Lashley to watch on, and this was because they walked past them on their way to the ring. Commentary told us we had to be impressed by this win, and that it didn't matter that they defeated nobodies.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Big Bill then bragged about the win. Really. And he said they deserve a title match after beating a couple jobbers and beating Top Flight. Lashley stopped MVP from talking through down the mic instead. It was straight up bad. Absolutely ridiculous booking. I was going to say if they get a match out of this, but I'm remembering now I saw a graphic for it on social media. So this match has been booked for Dynasty because Learning Tree beat Top Flight and 2 jobbers. And now they're number 1 contenders for the AEW tag team titles. This division is in the mud. On Dynamite, Brody King beat Lance Archer to presumably set himself up for a first-round loss in the Owen. This match really had no reason for happening. I gave it an allowance, though, because King fought Kyle Fletcher, who is also a Don Callis family member. They fought last week, and he's going to be fighting Konosuke Takeshita soon. But it's really bullshit. It was a match just to have a match. King won, but it was boring. Don Callis confronted an impersonator of his in the front row. That was more interesting. What I will say about this match, though, to be fair.
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
And that is always appreciated. On Dynamite, the Ops, Willie Samoa Joe, cut a promo backstage saying he put them together because the landscape of AEW changed while he was away. Joe said they'll be at Dynasty and no one better be slacking. I don't even know what that even means. Joe's a great promo, but this felt like a bunch of nothing. And lastly, on Collision, Queen Aminata showed a wrist injury with Serena Deeb doing an I told you so, saying it was preventable. All she had to do was follow the game plan. Aminata stayed firm, saying she didn't give a shit. So Deeb handed her a binder of information to consider while rehabbing. And Aminata took it even though she said she didn't want it. This was a big time yawn. So that wraps up everything that happened on Dynamite and Collision that did not directly, immediately impact AEW Dynasty. So let's go ahead and hit the AEW Dynasty Ultimate Preview. We're going to break down every single match on the card, go-home moments from Collision and Dynamite, and of course, we'll give you a prediction for each match and a pre-show expectation grade at the end. Now, 2 matches on this show are first-round Owen Cup matches. And I just don't understand why it is believed that first-round tournament matches should be on a pay-per-view you're charging $50 for. It's ridiculous. Now, for the men's Owen, the matchups are going to be Will Ospreay and Kevin Knight, Brody King and Konosuke Takeshita, Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher, plus Hangman Page and a wild card. You have this huge roster, but there's still a wild card here. So clearly it's going to be Ospreay and Hangman in the finals. At least that's my expectation. The only match I care about here before that would be Ospreay and Takeshita in the second round. That'll be absolutely ridiculous. As far as the wild card, I'm presuming it's going to be Josh Alexander. And that match, if it is Hangman and Alexander, that would be great as well. So it's Ospreay and Knight in the first round. There is no world in which this match belongs on a pay-per-view. Are they going to put on a banger? Sure. Ospreay is arguably the best in-ring performer in the world. Knight is athletic as hell. But this is not even a Collision main event, let alone a pay-per-view match. It's a joke from a booking standpoint. Ospreay's going to win. The women's Owen is going to have Hayter and Starks in a rematch for some ridiculous reason. Rosa and Stat, Monet and Julia Hart, and then Harley Cameron and Athena. Harley Cameron is in a tournament where she can possibly get a number one contendership for the AEW women's title. She's basically beaten nobody. Now, going with Monet and Athena in a semifinal, doing that as the first long-awaited match between them, that's confusing booking. But the match we're getting on Dynasty is Monet and Julia Hart. On Collision, Monet and Cameron are going to be fighting Athena and Julia. That's coming up this Saturday. On Dynamite, Harley with the puppet interrupted a Mercedes promo, excited to be teaming with her. Monet said to stay out of her way. As far as this match goes, as with the men, it does not belong on a pay-per-view. Like, what are we even doing? This is barely a Collision match, let alone a main event, let alone a pay-per-view match. It's almost offensive to put this and Ospreay White on the card and, again, ask people to pay $50 for it. If this show is $25, all right, fine, go for it. But not for $50. Monet is going to beat Hart, and let's just move on. We mentioned that this tag team championship match got added, so it's going to be Hurt Syndicate. I was trying not to call them Hurt Business against Learning Tree. Again, this is barely a Dynamite match. Learning Tree has no business being number one contenders. Hurt Syndicate clearly will retain the titles here. I just don't care. But yes, we will see Bobby Lashley and Big Bill going up against each other.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
The TNT Championship will be on the line. Daniel Garcia defending against Adam Cole. No interference, no time limit. On Collision, Cole and Garcia with undisputed Not Kingdom and Daddy Magic. I guess Cool Hand Ange is gone again after those two appearances. They did a face-to-face. Cole basically put Garcia over, but said they need to finish their fight. Garcia was frustrated. He hasn't firmly defeated Cole. Daddy Magic didn't want him to get another opportunity because Cole's had his chances. He's the one who needs to win. Garcia just has to defend the title. Completely fair point. The most logical thing I've heard on AEW television in a long time. Garcia accepted the match anyway. Then Roderick Strong put Garcia over again unnecessarily. Garcia decided it would be the last time they fight, again with no one ringside and no time limit. This is a TV main event that does not belong on the card, despite it being a longer-term storyline. You could put this on Dynamite with the title change rather than bury it on a stacked pay-per-view. Despite the story they've told, not one part of it has actually resonated with me and made me care about the feud or who ultimately will win. At this point, I just assume it's going to be Cole because the TNT title could really use some elevation and Garcia's done basically nothing with it. I suppose Cole could put Garcia over and strengthen his run. I'm still going to predict the title change here. That just makes the most sense. There's no shame in Danny losing to a former NXT and ROH champion, and I assume that's the direction they're going to go. There's going to be a title versus mask match. Chris Jericho putting the ROH championship on the line against Bandito and his mask. There was no build for this on the Go Home Dynamite. I presume there will be on Collision. I have Bandito winning the ROH title from Jericho. It seems like Tony Khan puts the title on Jericho every time he thinks ROH is going to potentially get a TV deal. And then when he doesn't, he takes it off of him. So that's my expectation here. The trios titles will be on the line. Death Riders defending against Rated FTR. On Collision, Wheeler Yuta beat Dax Harwood with the seatbelt because that's the only way he can beat anyone that has a modicum of talent, apparently. Harwood was immensely frustrated after the bell, given his string of defeats and disappointments. He screamed at the referee, even grabbed his shirt, pushing him into the corner before security took him. Cash Wheeler ran in to pull them off. Dax shoved him, not realizing it was Cash. He offered a hand up, but Wheeler slapped it away, stormed off. This is one of those dumb wrestling things that all companies do, where anyone that has a brain would know their best friend didn't do that on purpose. I am curious, though, like where the Dax story is going. On Dynamite, Dax apologized to the referee, and rather than pay a $10,000 fine to the company, he paid the official directly with Tony Khan's permission. That is terrible management right there, allowing a talent to literally bribe a referee. The decree should have been that he had to make a charitable donation to the referee's favorite charity. I digress. Taz had an amazing line here, though. Dax joked that the ref shouldn't cash the check until Friday, and Taz, under his breath, said, "I've heard that before." The reference, of course, being Paul Heyman and ECW. Great stuff there. Dax apologized to Cash, calling him by his real name, Dan. Wheeler refused a hug, saying they're brothers. They will be fine eventually, but not until they hash it out after Sunday's match. This seems like a massive overreaction from him. On Dynamite, Adam Copeland beat Claudio Castagnoli. Claudio cut a promo on Collision challenging for a singles match, and he made an Edge reference. You could tell he thought he did something by saying that. The promo sucked. There were some good sequences in this match. Claudio hit a pop-up European uppercut and neutralizer. Commentary told us it was an amazing match, as they always do. And then he tried a concerto during a regulation match. For some reason, the referee stole the chair. Cope low-blowed Claudio and won with a spear. It was a worthy main event, a nice final touch ahead of the 6-man match. Now, originally, I was going to go with Rated FTR winning the trios titles. I thought it would give Copeland something coming out of this longer-term feud with Death Riders and put them as a trio in a position where they could actually do something meaningful with the titles coming out of this. Plus, Death Riders just doesn't need them, right? The whole gimmick is that they don't display the titles, and they just started defending them again in trios matches when people realize, like, oh yeah, these haven't been used at all. But with Dax's attitude of late and the patriarchy still lurking, it just seems like this is going to be a retention. So I'm changing what my expected prediction was going to be. I was originally going to predict new champions. Instead, Death Riders retain the titles. International Championship, Kenny Omega, Ricochet, and Speedball Mike Bailey in a triple threat. Zero build for this on the Go Home Dynamite. I presume they'll do something on Collision, but it doesn't really matter because it's the most predictable match on the entire show. Omega's retaining the title. He's going to fight Kazuchika Okada at Y'all In, and they're eventually going to merge the International and Continental Championships. I mean, what else is there to even say? It'll be a lot of flippy shit. It'll be fun. It'll probably get 5 stars from a certain someone, and I'll probably give it an A. I mean, let's just go ahead and predict that right now. AEW Women's Championship, Toni Storm against Megan Bayne. Toni opened Collision with a much improved, more serious aesthetic. Megan didn't answer her call, so she spoke laying down under a spotlight, looking up at a crane camera. Storm said a bunch of nothing before she said that she would leave Dynasty with Bayne's tits in her purse. There was an excellent blindside by Penelope Ford, which put her face right in front of the camera, and that opened the door for a stereo blindside from Bayne, who hits Fate's Descent to end the entire segment. I actually wish that this had ended with Penelope's attack, because the visual of her right in front of the camera was immense. If you did that and then went to commercial break and then came back and Storm was still laying out in the ring and then Bayne attacked her, that would have been so much better. Or don't even do the Bayne attack. Just have it end with Penelope Ford staring into the camera, and then you set up a match for Dynamite, which they did anyway. The rest of it was still quality. The attack was fine, but the peak of it was Ford's attack and that visual. A solid segment, all things considered. I don't pop for Storm's gimmick or promos the way many of you do. It's just a bunch of innuendos and exclamations, and it largely goes nowhere. On Dynamite, Storm beat Ford with Storm Zero. Bayne came out in this white dress.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
But she did honestly look ridiculous because she was wearing this huge headdress without the rest of her wrestling gear. It's like she was going to a Greek Kentucky Derby or something like that. Anyway, ideally in this match, Storm and Bayne, you would continue building Bayne by having her straight up beat Storm and just become a Beast Women's Champion. Continue this extremely hot debut with the company. That would put her over massively, and you theoretically would make a new star. The problem with doing that in this case is that Storm is literally one of your top stars, and she just won the title back after concluding a blood feud. She's also now been knocked down twice by Bayne in the build-up to this. And Storm is also not booked in the Owen. So unless you pulled someone and injected her into it, that means she wouldn't even get a battle back rematch at Y'all In. So it's for all those reasons that I have Storm retaining the title here, especially since Bayne already beat her clean 1-2-3. But could I see Bayne winning? Yes, I could. And that brings us to the main event for the AEW Championship, Jon Moxley against Swerve Strickland. Mox got a promo on Collision saying Marina Shafir is only the 4th person he's ever feared in his life, and while he'd rather watch her and Willow Nightingale tear each other apart, Swerve needs to back up his talk in the ring. Then Marina Shafir actually spoke, saying she would rip out Willow's liver and shove it down her throat.
Alrighty then.
On Dynamite, we had Swerve and Willow against Mox and Marina in a mixed tornado tag team match. This opened the show. I maintain that a tag team match being tornado rules does not automatically make it no DQ. I think WWE did this with like New Day and LWO, and it pissed me off. And it was the exact same thing here with AEW. Maybe I'm forgetting and I'm getting the rules wrong, but I disagree with it. I believe a tornado match is just no tagging, so you can't be DQ'd from that, but it doesn't mean you can use weapons and do whatever the hell you want. I digress. The men both threatened to hit finishers on the women, but simultaneously chose not to. Then Willow pushed Mox into her partner for some unknown reason. Marina did a really cool rotating heel hook slam. I've never seen that before. Then she was physically unable to lift Willow for a powerbomb off the ring apron into a table ringside. Nearly a total disaster. And Willow did straight up land headfirst on the table. I truly hope she was okay after that. It was a terrible spot. She finished the match. Fingers crossed that AEW did the check that they were supposed to do. It did look like that happened, but she continued in the match. And it was blatant that her head hit first on this one. Mox hit Swerve with Paradigm Shift ringside during a commercial break. Willow based a Tower of Doom rather than save her partner. Then she powerbombed Marina into the guys to break a rear naked choke. Swerve hit a rolling flatliner before Marina took house call bullet for Mox. Willow then pounced Mox off the apron into a table, which AEW cameras completely missed. Then she hit Dr. Bomb on Marina for the win. As Swerve celebrated, Mox hit Nightingale with Paradigm Shift for good measure. I assume angry over the table shot. Now, this match was not only a lot of fun, but it was a proper mixed tag. Willow was unsurprisingly the MVP. Marina was easily the worst person in the entire ring. Hysterical, by the way, that this was Shafir's first match in this run with Death Riders, and she lost. So this badass who's beating the shit out of dudes can't even win a mixed tag team match. Now, while the spot at the end was interesting, it did get heat on Mox. I'm not sure I understand the point. I presume the payoff is that Willow is going to ultimately play a role in him losing the title, but you can't turn around and have her back after just 4 days. So that theoretically would need to happen down the line. What was funny about this match is that nothing Mox and Swerve did made me want to see them fight again Sunday. I only came out of this wanting Willow to kick Mox's ass, and I felt that way before she took the Paradigm Shift. But this was a lot of fun altogether, 3.75 stars, B+. Swerve later put Willow over for stepping up to the challenge before telling Mox through the camera that he won't rest until he gets his hands on him at the end of the night. If you're Mox and you hear that, don't you just leave? The last segment of the show was Swerve just standing backstage before deciding to slowly walk down one hall looking for Mox. Instead, Hangman Page ran him down from behind, screamed that he's wasting time and would never hold the title again. Swerve screamed that Hangman burned his house down. Page screamed back that he deserved it. And Swerve responded, "I know." That led to their tension breaking, Hangman looking at him, and then running off. Mox and the Death Riders then attacked Swerve from behind. Swerve got thrown into this random assortment of wood, fake glass, and powder or something. Then he got dragged to the ring where he was beaten 3-on-1, really 5-on-1, including by Claudio, who had just wrestled Copeland seconds earlier. Yet neither Copeland nor FTR were anywhere to be found. They dumped out an empty paint can of fake glass for a cross-armed powerbomb, and then they all left. Swerve sat up like The Undertaker without any blood on his back. AEW zoomed in trying to sell it, but you could see the fake glass. And that's how the go home to Dynasty ended. Starting positively, I loved the Swerve Hangman moment. The idea of them coming to a mutual understanding, even if not a mutual respect, that's immensely interesting. Hangman's reaction of confusion and then flight, just getting the hell out of there to figure out his emotions, that was perfect. Because don't forget, we've said this for a long time, Page was never the bad guy here. Everything he did was justified. So Swerve just gave him the justification, and that rocked his world. Should Swerve not win the AEW title at Dynasty, potentially having Hangman in his corner, should he need help in the future, that could be a good time. It was the most compelling part of the entire week in AEW, and that's despite this lasting like 60 seconds. The negative is that this attack was a massive eye roll. Typical Death Rider shit. If you're going to throw glass out there, you've now established as AEW that you use real glass, especially in a more controlled environment like this on a mat. Now, maybe there were state regulations that prevented it. Sometimes that happens, but then do a different spot. Use a different weapon. Use barbed wire. Use a chair. Don't show blood. Don't do fake glass if you're AEW. The lacking logic, though, of rated FTR not being around to help, that really killed it for me. Claudio was able to attack after losing a match, yet Copeland, who won, could not have made his way out to the ring over the 4 to 5 minutes to save this dude, given his immense hatred for Mox and Death Riders. Given this guy hasn't said peep about Christian Cage and the patriarchy costing him a title, logic has not been strong with Adam Copeland of late, at least his character. When you see a moment like this on the Go Home show, coupled with the Hangman make good and Willow being attacked, the presumption is, what we are being led to believe, is that Swerve is going to walk out of Dynasty as champion. And that's really what should happen, given you want a mega match to main event y'all in. Swerve and Ospreay, or Hangman, or all three of them. That would be the best possible main event match. But if Death Riders are going to be defeated, you're going to need a person or group capable of getting tons of backup to take out the interference. And Swerve does not have anywhere near that backing right now. The only way to make this work would be if Rated FTR straight up murks Death Riders in the trios match, takes them out of commission. That would then open the door for Willow to take out Marina and Swerve to win. You could also have Hangman come out. Fans think he's going to take out Swerve because that was the promise, but he murks Death Riders instead. To me, that would be far too large of a gap, Hangman literally helping Swerve win a title, because of two words I know, in a 4-day span. You cannot go from blind rage and major hatred of someone to helping them achieve a goal in that manner. So my prediction is going to be Moxley retaining the title, especially given this has been booked as a B-level show and Double or Nothing is just a month away. However, if we see Death Riders get taken out earlier in the night, I would probably change my expectation live while watching to Swerve walking out with the title, but we're not going to know until the show actually happens. So those are your match breakdowns and predictions for AEW Dynasty. In terms of a pre-show expectation grade, no matter how poor a build may be for an AEW pay-per-view, they always over-deliver, usually just because the match quality is so ridiculously high. In this case, though, I don't know that match quality can overcome a lacking card, a significantly lacking card. You have Swerve and Mox, which is a strong main event, stronger than the one they had for Revolution. Storm and Bane, apples to apples, is weaker than May, just given the storyline history between the two. Omega, Ricochet, and Bayley, it is as predictable an outcome as you could possibly have. Perhaps only second to Hurt Syndicate and Learning Tree. Both of those are on this card. You have the Trios title match, which, okay, that's unpredictable, and that could be a lot of fun. Good wrestlers in there. Title versus Mask, Jericho and Bandito. It's a TV main event, maybe. That's on a pay-per-view. And the same thing goes with Garcia and Cole. And then you have the Monet Hart and Ospreay night matches, and you're just like, I'm not paying $50 for those. Now, some of you may, but that is not something that's getting my $50, right? So, as an overall show, the card and the build leaves a lot to be desired. And I'm just going to be completely candid with all of you. Going into this week, I did not realize Dynasty was Sunday. And that never happens to me. I'm on top of every WWE Premium Live event, every NXT Premium Live event, every AEW pay-per-view. We're talking on the podcast, in previewing, future episodes of when the Ultimate Preview is going to be. I didn't even mention this last week because I didn't realize it was happening so soon. Going 28 days after Revolution with Double or Nothing ahead and then Y'all in after that, it is way too many shows in a short window. And that is why this completely looks like a B show, even if there's going to be high-level matches from a wrestling standpoint. And when I say B show, I mean not an A show, not a B grade show. And yet, that's also my expectation grade coming in. I'm going to go with a flat 85 out of 100, a B, because I know the wrestling is going to be good. But they need me to care from a storyline standpoint. If Swerve beats Mox, then perhaps that alone would bump this to a B+, because that would be interesting, and I'm sure it would be a really good match and an exciting finish. But I don't know what else could happen on this card that would pop me to a significant degree besides high-quality matches. And that's why I feel like the ceiling coming into this is like an 89. But look, it's not. In reality, the ceiling's an A+. So AEW has every opportunity to blow us out of the water. I just don't necessarily think that's going to happen, not because the matches won't be great, but just because of the way the card has been structured. So that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. A reminder, we will be back Sunday when AEW Dynasty goes off the air with an instant analysis podcast. Again, being candid with you, Silver King is going to be traveling, waking up at 7 a.m. the next morning. So I do not believe that's going to be an hour, 90-minute long instant analysis like we so often do. It will probably be a short show that I can get published as quickly as possible. That way I can actually go to sleep and be safe driving, 8 hours up to Georgia from South Florida. So it may not be as comprehensive as usual. And if that's the case, we will have the second look next Thursday where we wrap up any additional thoughts about AEW Dynasty. So we're still going to give you full coverage. You just may come across 2 shows instead of 1, but please do not miss the AEW Dynasty instant analysis, which will come Sunday night as soon as that show goes off the air. After that, we'll have your next WWE episode on Tuesday. That precedes our major WrestleMania week, which we will divulge for you next week. We'll tell you every single episode that we will be doing for WrestleMania week. And then next Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel, we're talking NXT and AEW again. So plenty of performance-enhancing audio headed toward your ear holes from the Getting Over Wrestling podcast over the next few weeks. Don't miss it. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, don't forget,
It's all about the fight.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star ratings on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we'll read it live right here on the show. And if you leave some comments on Spotify, we'll read those here as well, best we can. But don't forget to leave those 5-star ratings for us on Spotify as well. Those are very important. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full audio of every episode, video clips from past interviews, full video of new 2025 interviews. Another one coming next week. We already have Vic Joseph there that you can watch. Follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments. We'll read and answer on the show. And you can also vote in our pre and post show polls for AEW Dynasty on Twitter at Getting Overcast. Lastly, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.